Hi, everybody. It is September. It's the last week of September, which is my birthday month. So, hooray for another circle around the sun. Um, Birthday month, birthday week, I should say. September is my birthday month. The last week of September is my birthday week. I am 7 years old. Never thought I'd make it this far. So, but then I think a lot of people don't, especially when they're teenagers. So, in honor of my birthday, I looked up the, weird celebrations, whatever each month, each week is supposed to be. And September is apparently Latinx American History Month. So I decided to focus on a Latino writer. And I decided this week I was going to read Zero Saints by Gabino Iglesias. Now, I picked up the book a few years ago, but I hadn't gotten a chance to read it yet. So I thought, hey, this is the perfect time. Gabino Iglesias is an Austin, Texas-based author. He writes something he calls barrio noir, which is an interesting description. His books are set in an underbelly of the places that they're set. In this case, Austin, Texas. I mean, write what you know, obviously. And the story itself is pretty straightforward. It's a pretty simple story. I'm gonna give you some basic spoilers. It's a story about this guy named Fernando. He's a petty drug dealer, criminal kind of guy. He has a square job, but of course it doesn't pay the bills. They never do. And he deals drugs on the side. He's just one of those petty runner kind of guys. But, he always shows up on time. He pays for the product, keeps to himself. And he believes that Santa Muerta is looking over him. And he also seems to, I think he sublets an apartment from some rich college student too. So, he's never there when the landlord shows up. He never gets his mail. He's pretty invisible. And the reason he's invisible is that he's from Mexico, but he had a really bad experience there, got some help getting over the border, and showed up in Austin. And he works for this guy named Guillermo. So our first meeting of Fernando, he is walking down the street. He's got his iPod in, his pods, his little ear things in, and he is dragged into the trunk of a car, beaten, and brought to this house of these other newer guys on the block. And they tell him that now they're running the show. They're willing to work with him, but they're going to take the profits. And they kill one of his friends right in front of him. And it's a really, really horrifying death and a horrifying scene. And Nando's he prays to Santa Muerte. He believes that she's looking out for him. So he goes to visit his friend Guillermo, and Guillermo's got a roommate, cook, wife. Not really sure what their story is, but she's an older lady named Consuelo, and she's a very lovely person. And she's got these pet dogs. And Guillermo basically tells him, don't listen to them. They're pups. What do you think they're gonna do? So the next time Nanda goes back, it's turned out very badly for Guillermo, and especially for poor Consuelo, who never did anything to anybody. So he takes her altar statues and he starts praying. Oh, and she had also given him a sort of spell for 9 days where she says, light the candle, say the prayer. And this will help you out, because she could see that there was something hanging around him. And these guys aren't just petty criminals. And this is what, as Nando starts to think about it, is starting to really start to weigh on him, is that these guys aren't normal. So he calls in, or before Guillermo dies, he calls in this assassin named the Russian. And Fernando gets in touch with the Russian, and he says, what happened with those guys? I want them dead. And the Russian's like, yeah, no, I'm not going over that guy. He has black eyes. He's got a demon in him, and you're on your own, buddy. So Fernando's like, okay. And he calls up another assassin buddy of his, and they go and they they gear up, and they go and they try to seek revenge. And Fernando, through it all, is praying to Santa Muerta, and he's calling on the grace of the saints to help him out. Now, that was the impression I got. Unfortunately for me, and I'm going to give the book 4.5 stars because, not because of a failing of the book, but because of my own failing. I don't speak English, or I don't speak English. Yeah, I speak English, not well enough, but I don't speak very much Spanish. And my understanding of Spanish is like 1 in 5 words read. And I took 3 years of high school Spanish. So I do, I can say stuff like Donde está el baño, or dos cervezas, por favor. But when it comes to actually having a conversation or understanding very well, it's not very good. And I mostly remember the swears anyway, right? But one quality that I thought was really cleverly done was one of the, we'll call them bad apples, one of the bad apples that Nando is dealing with in the very first scene. He says something in English, and he kind of drops in Spanish words along the way. And Nando comments on just how terrible this guy's English is. Now, if you want to come across the border and, not be dragged away by immigration, you really do have to be able to pass for a gringo. So, but it occurred to me as I was reading that, and the way that the language is structured in the book, that when I was in high school and I was learning other languages, what I would do, I would be watching cartoons or whatever, and I would just translate what I was watching into the language that I was practicing. So if it was Spanish, I would translate it into Spanish, and if it was French, I would translate it into French, and I would just drop in the English words whenever I didn't know something. And obviously in Spanish, I would know a whole lot fewer Spanish words, so I'd drop in more English. So my head became this sort of mishmash of French and English and Spanish, and kind of all together, which gets kind of hilariously confusing because some of the words sound the same in French and Spanish, but don't mean the same. So in Spanish, the little small letter Y is pronounced E, and E in Spanish means and, but in French it means there. So it could get really confusing. So I'm writing something out and I drop in E, and it's like, what does that mean? So anyway, my point being that not understanding, not comprehending that little bit of the language makes it a puzzle. And it creates a feeling of disorientation and confusion. And I thought that that was a really interesting and clever way to show how somebody who doesn't think or speak, think in or speak the language has to operate in a world that's foreign to them. It's disorienting, and it's confusing, and as you're going, you're not sure you're quite understanding what's going along. You can get the meaning by context, but you can't always fully understand everything that is happening. And I thought that was a really way to show, rather than tell, what the immigrant experience can really be like, because there are a few passages throughout that talk about what it's like to be an immigrant, what it's like to come across the border with somebody that doesn't care if you live or die, and what causes people at the people at the border with guns to think that these people are less than human. And there's a really the book has some really lovely turns of phrase, and even some comical ones. Like there's a description where this one made me laugh out loud. The guy is wearing pants that are too short to be pants and too long to be shorts, and you know exactly what he's talking about, and it's hilarious. But another one of the turns of phrase that I found really, really lovely was, you cross the frontera, but it doesn't matter because the frontera crossed your abuelas long ago. And I thought that that was an interesting way to describe how colonialism has taken so much from the people who were colonized, and how that has created these borders that don't really make any sense, and has violently turned against the people who, a lot of them, were here first. And it's not fair. And it's created how immigrants are treated like criminals, but they become criminals because they're not welcome in this place that should have been theirs. And it does raise a lot of questions about the identity of people who cross the border, and people who at one time were colonized. And I mean, it's a subtext in the book, but it's a really interesting one, and it's done really subtly, right on top of all of the, the blood and the violence and the crime and all of that. So 4.5 stars out of 5. I really enjoyed this one. Zero Saints by Gabino Iglesias. Check him out. He's over on Twitter, and he says, if you don't want to do it, just get up and do it anyway. Hustle, 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 and keep the hustle going. Hope you're reading lots of great horror. Have a great day.